your favorite rapper's time, your favorite movie star's time, your favorite entrepreneur's time, your favorite director's time, your favorite writer's time, your favorite mogul's time. You already know what time it is. You already know how we're rocking. You already know how I rock through the distractions. You know how I do this. You know how I handle it. We already saw happy birthday to X. You already know what it is. You rocking with the one and only. All rights reserved. There is no other. Let's get into it. Let's talk about this point. Addressing points in the live stream that we talked about briefly yesterday. I brought up the real estate aside some other factors. Now we're going to get into another one. Here's what we need to talk about. Shout to CommenterNation, greatest nation since United Nations. As you listen to the live stream, there were very interesting things that came up. Well, let's talk about it. What's going on with the way that women are attracted as a harem? Now, I briefly discussed this question and I asked it basically, how are these women making contact with individuals? Now, a lot of you may be like, oh, there's some funny stuff to it. It could be very simple. You go to a place where you know money is of necessity. You use that to your advantage, and that's how you leverage interest. So you use the fact that you may be an alleged baller or somebody of high profile nature that gets money for women and stuff, and you get the big bucks, and you could play that off whether you have it or not. You can even use your relations and affiliations with certain people around the vicinity. But this is an easy way to convince someone who dances, someone who does anything of the nature to grow some type of basis. And you can leverage this and say, look, this is what I did, or look at this girl. And the best way to do this would be using other women around who claim that they're getting money, that they're doing certain things. That's how you bring the truthfulness to it. So what happens is you would have a girl or a few girls that either know someone or are willing to travel with you and get paid to bring in other girls. This is the easiest way to bring some type of credibility to what it is you're saying. Because the thing we know to be is that someone who may perform in some beat down place or may perform for a set amount of money and they're not getting any more would be interested in making more. And this is business. This is relevant to knowledge. This is an easy way to build credibility, whether or not it is credible in the end. And once somebody comes in, you heard of the motives and emotions used. Blackmail, a chief motive and chief perspective, a skill used to leverage these people again after you already leveraged them to the spot. So you have them blackmailed to a certain scenario or situation so that turning their back seems less likely. These are easy tactics that's used in many different forms of attracting, as I ask my question. Now, here's what we need to understand. When these people are brought in, the thing I didn't get is, well, if we're presuming performance is part of what's going down, where they tested before, where certain things done before. But it seems that it just depends the scenario. It depends how these type of things are able to be done before a conclusion is made. There's a lot of open and closed barriers. There's a lot of, let's say, bleakness in the situation, but ultimately we're able to deduce that it's simple to use part of your harem to attract more to the harem. Wherever there's a crowd of ladies, it's easier to attract more ladies who want to find out how much money's being made, what's going on. And the women are going to be easier to, or let's say more susceptible to taking this in from other women convincing them. Because these other women convincing them are getting paid to do so anyway. It's all emotion. It's all, let's say, an ulterior motive and tactic utilized by anyone who knows anything about business. Now, here's where the faulty part is. You create a lot of witnesses. So the more you do this, the more you create people who, if anything you're saying is not true, will be aware of the fact you use lies to attract others. And they could blackmail you back to do that. That is, in my mind, where the abuse could begin. That is where, in my mind, the alleged abuse can be done within some grounds of hiding it. And when I asked questions, we heard those who are abused, they're literally not held hostage because they showed up there in the first place. They're not leaving for help, but they're convinced to stay put until their wounds heal. So if you guys weren't paying attention, there was a book written by a great pimp. Now in this book, and as I've watched and read, he used pain, but was the same one that nursed the wounds. This in turn creates the sense that I can hurt you, but I'm gonna nurse your wounds to make you think that I love you. Whether it's true or not, it's irrelevant when you use pain as a way to try to maintain. Because then it just becomes a systematic effort and way that you validate it controls a product. Because that's what you are. That's what you become, a product. And that is the way growth is made in income wise. That is the way that justification is made in the harm that is done. And that is why certain people or certain harem members will begin to not see anything wrong with it, because you leverage the pain. You see, the key word here is leverage. When you're able to leverage assets and products, just like in business, that is how you make more. When you're able to leverage situations and, let's say, inviting certain people to get certain gifts for them going with the flow, that is a simple method in which you're able to control and maintain the power. Now, here's the thing. When you're trying to leverage so many resources at one time, you can forget the importance of one versus another. And that's where I believe the mistake was made. They did not leverage the importance that some resources were to a situation and literally allowed the value to slip through their hands, making selfish decisions on emotion. Number one, this is number one. You don't make decisions in business off of emotion. You never do. Number two, you don't make decisions around certain individuals without knowing their worth in your eyes or their potential worth. And that's the key part of where the mistake was made. Potential worth is everything. So if I'm leveraging to try and sell a house and I think it's a rundown house, but I realize it's in a high estate area where the land is worth a lot, where the community is valued, that's reason to look at the potentials of fixing up this property, making it worth more, but also being able to charge more because of where it's located. You see, I can't just look at the worth and the cost of fixing up someplace versus the land it's on, versus the area it's in, versus whether or not it's an area in demand because of the school system, the location, the fun that could be had, the location to walk places. There's many different things to look at in aspect to leveraging cost, efficiency, and worth. I think this was missed. This was a key indicator miss. Off of the simple questions I asked, I immediately realized it. This was the worth that was missed. And because it was done this way, this is why everything folded the way it did in certain situations. But just like any good hustler or businessman, I expect them to fight through it. Oh no, we're going to power through this. No. Let's keep it moving. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. But being the way worth was leveraged off the jump, I don't see the value of anything being shown. I don't think these are women around that know their worth or know what their value is. The most devastating thing to a business would be any of these women realizing what they're truly worth, realizing what they can truly do without having to break bread with anyone. That is the danger of when you're leveraging people. The best way to do things is to leverage assistance that is teaching them to fish and not throwing them a bone, throwing them a fish, throwing an opportunity here and there. Because when you work things that way, you literally set yourself up that learning and teaching can quickly take away your assets. If you have not learned this, you have not learned. If you do not get this, you have learning to do. But in the end, we now see a clearer picture than ever, and the mistakes are beginning to compound as far as the case goes. What do I mean? We gonna talk about it. You know how I rock. All rights reserved.